All the Young Dudes by MsKingBean89, Chapter 92, 5th Year, Closing. Tuesday, 30th June 1976. "I'm sorry," said Sirius Black, with big anxious eyes, standing behind Remus as he brushed his teeth. "I'm sorry," murmured Sirius Black, low over the breakfast table, before Mary had arrived. "I'm sorry," pleaded Sirius Black, as Remus walked away again. "I'm sorry," whispered Sirius Black, as Remus closed his bed curtains every night. "So let him suffer," said the cruelest part of Remus, the part that had been hurt the most. He turned his head. He walked away. He closed the doors and he shut his eyes. "Sorry isn't good enough," he said, with every action. "I don't know what is." James and Peter watched, cautiously, out of the corners of their eyes. They knew not to get involved, though James undoubtedly bore the brunt of Sirius's distress. The late-night meetings had returned with a vengeance. The girls noticed that something was wrong. They weren't sure what. Lily thought he was nervous about going back to St. Edmund's. Marlene thought he was worrying about outward results. Remus went along with both notions gratefully. After all, he was doing everything he could bear to act as normally as possible. He joined the Marauders for meals. He sat in his usual place. He read his books. He played chess with Peter, gobstones with James. In the evenings, he climbed the stairs to bed. But he did not speak to Sirius. For the remaining 2 weeks of June, Remus didn't say so much as a word in his direction. He didn't even look at him, if he could help it. He had the feeling, after the first week, that perhaps James didn't completely approve of this. Pot was furious on Remus's behalf, of course, at least in the facts of the matter, but James could be very blind when it came to Sirius's less excusable flaws. James would have forgiven him after the first apology. Maybe Remus was a weaker man, but he wouldn't be weak anymore. He needed to get back to who he really was. We can all learn our lesson. Remus had tried being soft and open, like all of his rich, well-bred friends, but where had it gotten him? He'd gone and fallen in love with his best friend and almost got himself killed. He was ashamed of himself, mooning over Sirius like that. Mooney's mooning. Sirius would find that hilarious. So he started avoiding James and Peter too. He stopped going to lessons. That was the first thing. There weren't many to go to, of course, with the last exams taking place and the whole school falling into summer holiday mode. Still, he had introductory newt classes penciled into his timetable in almost every subject except potions. He couldn't wait to be rid of potions. The greenhouses were a good place to hide out. Remus found by the end of the year that he had nearly spent all of his carefully saved cash on cigarettes and weed. He told himself that was okay. Told himself he wouldn't need money to find and destroy a greyback, just the right scent in a full moon. Not that he thought about greyback much. He tried not to think about anything for too long. Anger gave way to a numbness which seemed easy to live with. When he couldn't be outside, he went to the library and pretended to read. Students from his study group stopped by occasionally, but he always found a reason to leave as soon as possible. "Hiya, Remus," Christopher popped out from between the stacks one afternoon. "Glad I caught you. Can you recommend some summer reading? I'll be doing my hours next year." "What?" Remus frowned, groggily. He'd been just nodding off and was annoyed to have been woken. He was sleeping a lot lately, but never seemed to feel refreshed. "Oh, God, I don't know. They send you a book list." "Yeah, but I thought you might have some good tips," Christopher continued, relentlessly cheerful. "Especially in history. What did you do your final essay on?" The Goblin Revolt," he shifted, trying to settle back onto his elbows. "Cool. Hey, maybe I could write to you over the summer. We can swap notes and—" "Look, Christopher, don't take this the wrong way, but could you please fuck off?" He would feel guilty about it later, but at least the annoyance went away. The Marauders never tried to find him, as far as he knew. He had taken the map the first chance he had, and kept it in his pocket at all times. This had the added benefit of helping him keep out of Snape's way. The only thing Remus wanted to avoid more than his rage at Sirius was his utter terror at the thought of running into Severus. Snape had hated Remus before all of this. He was too close to Lily, he was friends with James, he had been responsible for coming up with at least half of the pranks on Slytherin. Since the incident, this obsession seemed to have deepened. He was still whispering at meal times, staring at Remus all the while, with a fresh kind of hatred that Remus could see would run and run. If Sirius had learnt a lesson from that awful night, then Remus was certain that Snape had not. Sirius was all too keen. He apologised over and over. He never tried to explain himself, which was good, because if he had given an excuse, Remus didn't think he could control himself. It already took every ounce of nerve not to leap across the table, all the bedroom, all the common room, and shake and punch and scream at Sirius, "You bastard! You bastard! You bastard!" The apologies he could cope with. Background noise. He didn't rise to the bait. Not that he didn't have things to say. Not that he didn't replay the monologue over and over, editing and perfecting it until it was a great stream of miserable defeat, circling his head, fueling his mood. Sorry isn't good enough. Your guilt isn't good enough. I need you to feel it too. I trusted you. I trusted you with every last secret. I offered you every piece of me. What else have I got now? I could kill you. I could bash your teeth and say you choke on them. I could wrap my hands around your throat and squeeze. I could rip you to pieces. I could kiss you, you fucking bastard. In his dreams, Remus said these things and more. And always, in his dreams, Sirius stared back at him with calm contrition, as if he removed his clothes and pulled Remus towards him. It appeared that betrayal was not enough to kill desire, though it made it hiding easier. By the time that wretched summer term ended, the only person Remus despised more than Sirius was himself, for continuing to love him just the same. "Hello," Lily said, gently, poking her head around the carriage door. "Wondered where you'd got to." Remus grunted, a small noise which was neither friendly nor rude. Lily came inside. "What are you doing in here, all alone?" Remus shrugged, sucking his cigarette like it was keeping him alive. He hunched down in the seat, and she took the place opposite. "Shook rather than there," he said, by way of explanation. "Know how you feel," she replied. "McGonagall told me you've given up being a prefect." "Yep." He finished a cigarette. He lit another. "Shame. You were good at it." "Liar," he smirked. Her face lit up too. "Yeah, okay. You were rubbish. But I'll miss you on my rounds." She left this hang in the air for a moment before frowning again. "Remus, whatever's going on with you and the other boys, I hope it gets better. You seem so miserable." "I'm fine. Black's off the Quidditch team." "Is he? What did he do?" "Leave it, Evans. Just go away." "You know, you can talk to me. I know how it feels to be let down by a friend." "How is Snibbolus?" Remus snarled. He wished he could tell her that it wasn't her fault, that he couldn't help acting like a prick, that if he didn't act this way, that he wasn't really sure how to act at all. Well, I'm still not talking to him, as you know. He keeps trying, though. He had some pretty mad stories, actually. About you." Remus looked at her, finally. She looked nervous, her hands twisted in her lap. She looked a bit scared of him, actually. "I don't believe them," she said, suddenly. "Don't you?" He raised an eyebrow. He should have known this was coming. "I mean, just because you do have a lot of scars. Sorry. And you do get ill quite a lot. And that doesn't mean... I hadn't really thought about it. Maybe it's just a weird coincidence. I've always been a bit paranoid, and..." He could have watched her squirm like that for ages, tangling herself up in apologies and unasked questions. But why bother? He could be reckless too. "Lily," he said, gently, stubbing out his last cigarette. "You can't tell anybody." She stopped blathering and stared at him. He saw her big green eyes widen even more, the look of surprise on her face so comical he could cry. Her breath itched, then she nodded, resolute and quite serious. "I won't," she said. "Promise."